I am genuinely tired and I'm through with all this. I did not lose hope again, but I was tired of fighting. That constant fight of I'll be fine, I have to be tomorrow hard. So I was just simply tired. That tunnel, I couldn't see the end of it. And I physically actually put my head and hands on the bed in front of me and I surrendered.
This is episode number 91 of The Inspiring Talk with C Pallavi Rao Narvekar. Welcome guys to The Inspiring Talk. My name is Bijay Gautam. I'm your host for this show. Each week I interview today's most successful and inspiring personalities to help you realize your inner potential. Imagine this. You are at peak of your career. You are the top radio jockey. Just had your first baby. You had planned your future, your kid's future, and your life is almost perfect. Then all of a sudden your life starts going downhill. You are diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease called Myasthenia Gravis. And it is just the beginning of what you are about to face. You get discovered with cancer. You lose your voice. And doctor says, you can never go back to the radio and speak again. This is the story of my guest for this episode, C Pallavi Rao Narvekar. Pallavi was a very popular radio jockey with Radio Mirchi. She is a TEDx speaker and an author of the book ICU Love Stories. This is the book that Pallavi has written when she was admitted in ICU. Pallavi has created something called a health resume, which states she had 6 major surgeries, 48 radiation therapies, and 6 times on ventilator over the period of 10 years. If there is one of the most powerful stories on hope I have ever heard, this has to be the one. This is the story of the real Iron Lady who fought through all the odds to prove her doctors wrong with the power of her mind and never-ending determination. On this episode, you will hear us talk about how to deal with challenges. What are some of the lessons Pallavi learned going through all that she went through and her message to people facing the challenges in their life. This episode will leave you deeply inspired to face your challenges and never give up on the hope. Let's jump into the conversation. Welcome back inside this episode, guys. I'm super excited to have with me here Pallavi. Pallavi, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me over, Vijay.
So Pallavi, I would like to jump straight into the conversation. I know that there's a lot that we need to discuss on this podcast, and I'm not sure, how long this is going to go because there's a whole lot that we, have to cover on this episode. So I would like to start, this conversation by talking about your fascination with the radio. How did it came about?
I think the word before fascination, the word that comes to my mind is love. It's pure love.
Yeah.
So my first crush that turned into love, and a very serious relationship that I carried on, which I have carried on for years. So yeah, my love for radio, for the medium, the fascination for the voice started, I think, when I was in class 7. So that means about 11 years old. And I think that is my recollection of the time when I actually started listening to radio seriously. And I completely owe it to my father because I remember he used to come back from his night shift. He used to be working in a newspaper, sports editor and all. So after he used to come back from his night shift, he used to finish his day by listening to the headlines on the radio. Because television used to be of limited hours, so it get over by 11. So be it at 2:30 at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, he would finish his day by listening to radio. And it used to fascinate me how that small little transistor of his, the black National Panasonic small little transistor, used to captivate
Yeah.
him day after day. And that bass voice, baritone voice across
Yeah.
the medium. So he used to always tell me that, if you want to listen to radio, if you want your pronunciations right, English or Hindi, you must listen to the English, to the news bulletin on All India Radio. So I grew up
Hmm.
listening to a Barun Haldar, who was also my mentor and my guru in the radio industry, and to legends like Minoti Chatterjee and Vijay Daniels.
Yeah.
So that's where the fascination began.
You mentioned about your dad being a sport editor. What did your parents do?
Both my parents were journalists. I come from a family of journalists, so to say. All my uncles, my parents, everyone in the family were journalists. And my brother is a journalist too. So my father was a sports editor of the Hindustan Times. My mother had worked as a Bollywood, as a film journalist in the most respected news magazine of those days called Screen. So, she had
Okay.
interviewed the top of all the Bollywood actors, the film industry. And my brother has been a
Yeah.
journalist all his life, again into sports. So, yeah, I came from a family of journalists.
So I can relate to your love for the radio as well, and you later went on to do something about it on the radio. But I kind of gave up on that dream. But now with podcast, I'm kind of reliving that dream. But when I listen to it, especially the BBC has got this unique way of narrating the
Mm.
news, right? The way read the news, they have a specific
Yeah.
way, and I remember at one instance, I was at a hostel
Mm.
and, I picked up the newspaper and I read the newspaper and recorded in the exact tone the BBC guy would. And I went out on, to the hostel warden and told him, sir, just listen to the news. And he kept on listening for 2 to 3 minutes. I'm like, what are you listening? He says, am I not supposed to listen to this news? It's from BBC. Let me listen. And I'm like, that's my voice. And like, really? And,
Ah.
so I kind of almost copied
Mm.
and now even when I do this podcast thing and I make a joke of that saying that I did that, but yeah, I mean I had that love as well, but I did not do something about it because, and I think for you, a lot of people coming from that background, there were good people who could guide you, telling that what, you can make career on that as well. For me, the scene was, what, there is not a huge career that you can make out of radio or just becoming an RJ or
No, so, in fact, contrary to what you're saying, I have been doing radio for donkey's years. So I started off
yeah.
immediately after my graduation. In fact, I started just before I got my graduation degree. And trust me, at that time, from class 7 onwards till college, I did not tell even a single person that I wanted to do radio because they would say,
Hmm.
that is fine, but what are you going to do about a career? The same way as
Yeah.
I wanted to become a dancer, and I never could tell anyone that I want to become a Bharatanatyam dancer when I grow up. So people would say, that is all right, but what will you do for your bread and butter?
What will you do for a living? Yeah. So you haven't shared that you wanted to be a radio person
Not with any of my
because that was
friends.
not like a full-fledged profession.
Not at all. So all my friends during
Okay.
my school time had predicted that I would become a teacher, and that would be the maximum that I would do in my life. Okay, and teacher for them was a derogatory thing. You
Hmm.
just become a teacher in a school, which I eventually did, and I thoroughly enjoyed. But I wanted to do radio.
Yeah.
And I also must mention that my
Yeah.
grandmother, my father's mother, she used to do a lot of radio plays,
Yeah.
Telugu, in our vernacular language. And we
Hmm.
were one of the first few Telugu families, the Andhra families of Delhi. So she was one of the first ones to take part in Telugu plays at All India Radio. So maybe there was something, from there also. And all through my school and college, all I did every single day, what you said about reading the paper, I used to do that as a practice
Yeah.
every single day. So I remember I used to sit in front of the mirror. I used to have the newspaper in hand and I used to read aloud.
Hmm.
My habit of reading aloud really
Yeah.
stood me in good stead because I used to read everything aloud, from the newspaper to the pamphlets that used to come within the newspaper to when on the road, those billboards, the advertisements on the roadside, I used to just read it aloud, like an advertisement, like a
Yeah.
TV commercial. So there was no practice or no course that people ask me, where did you do this course from for radio? I mean, no course, nothing. Self-taught and listening, constantly listening.
Hmm.
How to modulate your voice, how to use the
Yeah.
mic, how to use your bass, how to use your where to put the intonation, where to put the stress. All these things were self-learned.
So, what did you study?
Oh, well, academics wise, I did my honors in geography
Okay.
from Kamala Nehru College, Delhi University, and topped all the 3 years. I was a good student.
Wow. Were you a good student all your life?
No,
Okay.
not at all. School, I was a very, very average student.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only in class 11 and 12 that I started to get interested in the subject because I got the subject of my choice.
Okay.
So I was not at all a science person when I got humanities. I liked those subjects, so I started doing well.
So, but still on the back of your head, you always wanted to become an RJ, right? So, were there any like courses for the media or, television? Because I remember, when these things came in existence in the first time, somebody who
Mm,
could speak well, they would get an RJ, come become an RJ. You look
mm,
good. Also, you can speak well, come become television presenter. So that's how it
yeah,
was, right? Were there formal education available
mm.
for becoming a media person back then?
Okay, Vijay, now when I tell you what I'm telling you now, you will get to know what a vintage person I am. Okay, so I come from the time when even the word RJ was unknown, was not known in India.
Mm,
Okay, we were only radio presenters. Okay,
mm,
RJing as a concept, as a word, as a term came in a little later. So I come from the time when I started off with AIR as a newsreader, which I'm talking about 1992, and then it was a natural progression. So there was no course or anything. I remember clearly that I had a resume, which was a half-page resume, which only said that I'm a graduate and that I'm a newsreader with AIR, and that was it. With that, I kept moving from one studio of Delhi to the other, showing that resume, and they kept saying, "We don't want to see a resume. We want to hear your voice. So give us
mm.
a scratch, give us a
True.
sample recording." How do you do that? Where do you do that? No idea. So sitting at home, on a tape recorder, I would record a sample portfolio, audio portfolio. Even that
Yeah.
concept or that word was not there then. And I would drop it at various studios. So you started to get work from one place. Then by word of mouth, you would get another assignment. And slowly and steadily, the work started becoming much more regular. So I
Yeah.
think for me, All India Radio was one big milestone. Followed by that was me getting entry into ZTV. So I had
Mm.
gone there, I left my resume and thinking, it's a news channel, what will I be doing there? We did not even know that there was a concept like a voiceover. At least I didn't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
Okay, so when I left the resume there, they called up and they said, "You left your papers here, but what are you applying for?" So I said, "Anything that needs my voice." So I was so naive and so silly. But
Yeah.
they called me instantly. They said, "Are you free right now?" And I had just left the resume and come back home in an auto rickshaw. And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll be there." And I went there and they took an audition in Hindi. Until then, I
Okay.
used to be very snobbish and think only about English. That, I am only an English person. Hindi I can't read, and Hindi is not my.
Yeah.
And there I found the script, which was in pure Hindi, heavy duty words
Okay.
in Hindi, which I had not read for 2, 3 years now, 4, 5 years, in fact. But I never said no to any work, Vijay. Never. So I did not tell them that I'm
Mm.
not confident. I may not be able to do it. This is not what I want to do. I said, yes, I'll try. And I did.
Uh-huh.
And I got through. And that was it. After that, English and Hindi voiceovers,
Mm.
news. I went into the next building of next to the All India Radio, which is called Doordarshan, which is the national channel, TV channel of India. I guess I was very lucky also that, as I keep telling everyone that literally whatever I touched would turn into gold.
Hmm. Yeah.
Any audition I would go, I would get through. And it used to be such a cakewalk for me. It used to be so easy. Maybe
Mm.
because I worked so hard. I had practiced for so many years. You
Yeah.
know, I was never camera shy.
Yeah.
I never had stage fright. I had no issues with the mic. So that nervousness or whatever I was so comfortable in that space.
Hmm.
So I became
Yeah.
a Hindi announcer, TV announcer,
Yeah.
with the national channel of TV channel of India. And then there was no stopping at all. I would MC shows. I would do, host parties on a stage wearing those
Yeah.
nice gowns and making people enjoy the event.
Yeah. So, and that was the interesting thing is there were not so many people like today, I'm sure at your age, then you would
Yeah.
feel like, what. And I remember as a kid, I used to host all these, school events as a host. And at one point, I was at my fifth standard and the dais, people could barely see my like forehead.
Ah,
And there was no a step or something where I could step in so that people can see my face. And the voice is like so
mm,
powerful and everybody, who is this kid, I mean, who is this whose voice is so, and they couldn't barely see me, they could only see my forehead. And when I would come back home and everybody was like, wow, you did this great job, and would feel like the mini celebrity
yeah,
because not so many people had that kind of confidence.
confidence.
And I'm sure you felt that as well. So one thing that you mentioned was you were not a bright student all your life, and
Mm,
then you had this something that I feel today was now whatever I do, I have to be best at it. Now I
yeah,
don't know. I mean, that was something that I was not like that all my life, and I
mm,
could see that you also have the same thing, saying that whatever I do now, I have to be best at it. So, and for me, when I try to trace back where did this thing about I need to be best at whatever I do came from, and I could trace it back to not being able to get into the university where I wanted to because I couldn't clear the entrance. And then and
mm,
then that kind of hit me hard, and I said, what, even if I couldn't make it to the best university, I'm going to be best wherever I go.
yeah,
And all my life, I've been an average student. And then, I topped my college, got the scholarship, got the placement, rewarded as the best student, all of that. And
yeah,
then after that, even on the job, I was getting like you know, most promising candidate and all of
yeah.
that award. And whatever I do now, like that has kind of become the nature for me, saying that, what, if I start something, I have to be best at it. So can you
Yeah.
trace something in your life as well, maybe incident or something somebody said or something that happened where you said, what, I'm going to be best at whatever I do.
No, not an incident per se, but once again, I think it goes back to my father because
Mm.
he, in fact, my parents were the unconventional ones, so to say. I remember very clearly my father used to say, you should enjoy your school life. I want both my children to enjoy their school life. So if it is my brother, then he wants to play cricket, let him,
So you
you
have two
know.
siblings.
Yeah. So I've got
Okay.
an elder brother, Rajshekhar, and
Okay.
he would say,
Who is, by the way, a very popular ICC commenter.
nah, yeah, he looks after the public relations and stuff. Yeah, and he's an
Okay.
author himself. He's penned quite a few books. So yeah, my father used to insist that you should enjoy your school life, do whatever you want, with extra emphasis on extracurricular. He would say studies is fine, and can you imagine a father saying it is okay if you do not do very well in studies, but don't get that red mark. So don't fail.
Hmm.
But it is okay. Don't take so much of stress of studies, but make sure that you take part in some extracurricular. So for me, it was dance all the time. So in fact, till my college, I was pretty sure that I would pursue dance as a career. Then eventually I, left it after college because my guru left Delhi and I couldn't settle with another teacher. So, so, so that perfection thing, I think, came from my father without him actually saying it, but doing it in his work. So seeing him,
Hmm.
or for that matter, my mother, she writes, and I used to get pretty upset with her, that when she writes a small little article or a middle for a newspaper, she would write and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. She would reread and say, ye theek nahi hai, ye theek nahi hai, and her English is like another level altogether.
Uh,
And I would say, don't put so much of stress. Narrate the story, narrate the story. But till and until she is satisfied with her final copy, she would not share it with
mhm.
the paper at all.
Yeah.
So maybe all these things are something that you notice and it kind of gets embedded, you know.
True.
So So whatever you do it to perfection. In fact, I feel sometimes that 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 thing for perfection sometimes takes a toll on you.
Yeah, it does. And in fact, interestingly, I had your husband Rahul on this podcast on 69th episode of the show.
Mm.
And I asked him the question about perfection, and he has totally different viewpoint on when it comes to perfection. He says like nothing is perfect. Just get into it and then improve. And right,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, so and I also kind of I'm not a huge perfectionist per se. I would love to make things quicker and put it out there and then
Mm.
get feedback and then improve on it. So
Yeah,
even though my father is like a perfectionist, whenever he touches anything he need to do it to the level of perfection, but somehow I did not imbibe that. And I think, I mean, that's still fine. I'm more of a, okay, get feedback and then improve, get feedback and then improve, rather than taking too long to put it out there.
yeah.
All right, Pallavi, now I want to fast forward few years from your All India Radio, and after
Mm.
that you went on to become the RJ at Radio Mirchi, running your show bumper to bumper. And at that point of time, you were like the hottest RJ or the hottest voice on radio at that point of time, if I can say so. And you got married and you had your first child. You were living your life, right? And going out partying and whatnot, like the best of the life. And something happened when you had your first child, you the only child, Rian. And something happened, and then your life started taking going downhill, right? So let's talk
Mm.
about what happened when you were singing that lullaby to Rian, and how how the whole thing about myasthenia gravis and other events
Mm.
unleashed after that.
Yeah, that's what I keep telling everyone, that my life is so melodramatic. That someone should actually make a movie out of it. It's so
Which
melodramatic.
is happening, by the way.
Yeah. Shh, that's a
Yeah,
secret.
that's a secret.
That's a secret.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, there I was. Now, whenever I narrate my life, I actually like to distance myself from myself, and I like to look
Mhm.
at it from a distance and talk about how crazy life is, and how amazing life is. What turns and twists it has. And if I say that it is not me, but it is just about a person for whom life was all about radio, about voice, about talking to an audience, talking to the city every day, and modulate and be just being in love with the microphone and stuff. For her to one day suddenly start slurring is the
Yeah.
most unfathomable thing. It is something unbelievable. It is bizarre. And that is why I
Absolutely.
keep
I mean, even when I'm doing this, the last thing that I would ever want
telling.
is like, even I'm doing the podcast is like, lose my voice, because that's something that I want to do. Right. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So there was this afternoon, evening when, and my son was barely a month and a few days old. And I was, as you said correctly, I was singing that lullaby and I started to slur.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what happened. Then either maybe it is a postpartum weakness. So I kept quiet for a while. Again, I started singing. Again, I started slurring. Then I got a little hassled and I left my baby with my mother and mother-in-law, went to the washroom and looked into the mirror and said my lines, the ones that I always do, which is, you're listening to Radio Mirchi 98.3 FM, and I'm Pallavi with you on bumper to bumper. That is my favorite line.
Yeah.
And just at this time, I started to slur by the end of it. And that is when I really got scared. So I kept quiet. I didn't tell anyone that evening. Next morning is when the thing actually set in. And just the next morning, I went into the washroom to brush and I couldn't spit. So the
Oh,
froth and the foam was there in the mouth, and I had no strength in my cheeks to throw it out.
wow.
I just didn't know what happened, and I kept trying and it was going inside. So I literally had to put my hand in and like, what the hell happened? And I
Mhm.
couldn't talk. I just couldn't speak a line or word clearly. I was slurring as if my face had no strength. My muscles had no strength at all. So I sat outside, and when my husband Rahul walked into the room and generally started chatting, I looked at him and I said, Rahul, I need to go to the gynae. Something is wrong. So he said, why, what is wrong? I said, something is wrong with my face. I can't talk properly. He said, what nonsense? Kya hua? Nothing. So I said, no, really.
Yeah.
And then when I started talking to him, he was shocked because he heard the slur. He said, okay, let's go. So my brother Rahul and I, we quickly went to the gynae, told her, I said, I'm slurring. So she said, what nonsense? This is all weakness after delivery. I said, no, seriously. So I asked her for a newspaper and I started reading it out in front of her. Because, initially the voice would be fine. And as the voice would tire, which was after like 4 sentences, it would slump into a slur. And this time she stood up and put her hands on her waist and she was hassled like how. And she said, girl, you're not going home. You're going from here straight to Apollo Hospital and you're meeting Dr. Vineet Sori. This. I'm taking an appointment right now. There's something wrong. And within, I think, 3 hours, our life was topsy-turvy. We just didn't know what happened. So we went to the hospital.
Crazy.
And he asked me for the symptoms. I told him. I mean, surprisingly, whatever symptoms he kept asking, I was nodding my head. I was like, yeah, this also happened. This also happened.
Yeah.
So he said, any problem in seeing? I said, no vision problem, but my left eye seems heavy. Okay. And problem, yes, I said, yeah, I had a problem with chewing this morning. I couldn't eat my bread. I found it to be such a task. I was wanting something softer to eat, dipping it in tea and having it. I couldn't close my mouth and open it. Closing and opening was a problem. It just was limp, Then the other symptom was, of course, some difficulty in breathing. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what I said. Kept telling him, I'm not feeling as if I'm breathing properly. It's not a full breath. So he took me to the next room and we got another test done, which is the RNS test, which is a repetitive nerve stimulation test where you put shock waves to see how well the muscles recuperate after a shock. And I think within 45 minutes to 1 hour, I was told that it is Myasthenia Gravis, which is a very rare autoimmune disorder. It happens to women. It happens, it's a rare one. Very few people in India. The only... And
so what was your reaction like? What was going on in your mind when he said, okay, this is a rare autoimmune disease?
I didn't know what he was saying, frankly. I mean, it just was going over my head, because I was sitting there and thinking, okay, finish off with whatever you're saying. Tell me what is to be done. I've got my kid. It's milk time because I was still feeding him, So I finish this thing off. And so when he did say Myasthenia Gravis, Vijay, the one name that came to all three of us was Amitabh Bachchan. For those who don't know who Amitabh Bachchan is, he is the biggest star, Bollywood star of India. He's a legend. He's a person I look up to for various reasons. And so that is a name that came to us because that was the only place where we ever heard this word. And so that was it. He said some medicines and it can be controlled with medicines. I said, fine. So came back, started taking those medicines. I was supposed to take 3 tablets in a day. Over the next week and 10, 15, 20 days, the dosage increased to 1 tablet every 2 hours.
Insane,
Yeah. So it became too much. Then he said, we have to put you on steroids. It is not getting controlled. So then I was put on steroids. For steroids, I did got to get hospitalized for 10 days because you do not know what the side effects of steroids is. So that was the first time after my cesarean that I ever got into a hospital for 10 days. And those 10 days were quite, it was difficult to understand what was happening because...
and also just a kid, feeding kid at home. Yeah.
So I had to express milk in the hospital and my driver would take that warm milk home and I'm sitting there. Then after I think 2-3 days, the doctor said, you can't feed your child anymore because they're on steroids. So stop that.
So, what were the emotions that were going at that point of time? Like, I'm sure you were still trying to make sense of a lot of things that was happening the first time that you were in hospital for that long.
Yeah.
What was going on in your mind? I mean,
The first thought, of course, was to get well and get home. How do I do that immediately? Why is it taking so long? And once the steroids kicked in, it takes about 5-10 days for the effect to start. Then it started becoming better. The symptoms started to become a little better. Then I said, why am I sitting here? I have to be back home. I have to be back on radio. I mean, all this is done. I have to get back to my show after my maternity leave and stuff. But then when it was not getting fine, the one thought that kept coming, now I feel is such a silly thing, was what would people think of me? That ego, that
mhm,
self-esteem, ego actually,
yeah,
not even self-esteem,
yeah,
ego, that got hurt. That, I am not able to talk, speak.
mhm,
I mean, that's the easiest thing for anyone to do, na? I'm unable to, and when I'm saying something, people are unable to understand. So what will my colleagues think? What will my
oh,
fellow video jock friends think? Will they laugh at me? Will they scoff at me? Will they have sympathy for me, which I don't want? None of these I want. So I just distanced myself. I stopped taking calls. Friends who would call, friends, when I say friends, I mean Mirchi colleagues who are very dear friends, who are still very dear friends of mine.
hmm,
They would call, I would not take the phone call at all. So that was my first reaction of, cutting myself from the world and just concentrating on getting well, which I was not getting well. The steroids
yeah,
were also not able to control the symptoms after a while. So, yeah, and of course, the fear, because I was still wondering, though the doctors kept saying that it is, you can control it with medicines, it was not getting controlled.
yeah,
So that fear of, when will it become fine? When will I start talking normally? I remember one day at home, I had to call the chemist, the pharmacy, to order my
yeah.
medicines. And that guy actually kept the phone down on me because he said, ma'am, I can't understand what you're saying.
Hmm.
Because he kept trying. He said, sorry, sorry, sorry. And I said, this medicine is, and I was big time slurring.
Slurring. Yeah,
So
yeah.
he got irritated. He couldn't understand here. And he kept the phone down. That was one incident that really jerked me. And another was when one day my cousins, my sisters, my brothers, and my uncle, my father's younger brother, he had come home to look, just to meet me as to how I was and stuff. And I was so happy. I said, oh, the entire family is here.
Families. Yeah, yeah.
So my little kid and, that entire family thing. I was so excited. So I ordered some samosas and, the evening snack and chai, tea, she, everything. And I was so excited. I was just talking away because with them, that's family. Now I didn't care,
Yeah.
how I sounded or whatever. And I was generally chatting. And suddenly I noticed that my uncle was staring at me and he had tears in his eyes. And he started to sob in front of me. And that is when Vijay realized that what I was saying, nobody was able to understand what I was saying.
Ooh.
And they
Ah.
were just laughing away because I was laughing. And uncle couldn't, he was so overwhelmed that I did not even realize that I was blabbering or, with that heaviness. And he broke down and that really hit me hard. So, in
Mhm.
fact, I'm talking about this incident, I think the first time. I've not mentioned this in many, many years.
Yeah.
So,
So when was it? It was 2004, 5?
2005.
Yeah. And then I think you went for the surgery after that
Yeah,
for the
2006.
myasthenia.
Yeah. So eventually, when steroids did not work and none of the medicines were able to control the symptoms, is when the doctor said that we will have to then go in for a thymectomy. So thymectomy is basically removal of the thymus gland. Now, the thymus gland is something which we all have since childhood, but and it is something that helps us with our immunity. And it remains quiet and, it remains placid forever in others. But in myasthenics like us, it kind of gets into action whenever there's a
Okay.
hormonal change. So in women, generally it happens during hormonal change. It could be during menopause or it could be during childbirth. And in men, if it happens, it is at the age of 60. It's very rare.
Okay.
And at that time, Vijay, very few people actually knew about myasthenia. Even when I would tell another doctor, they would say, where have we heard? We did read about it in some chapter in that MBBS.
Yeah.
So I had to tell them that this is what it is. It's like, oh, and then I would become a reading material for them.
Okay. Yeah. They were experimenting as well, saying that, okay, we got the, yeah.
I had to go through the thymectomy surgery. So when the doctor said you have to get this done, Rahul and we said, do we have a choice? No, not really. I mean, what to do? And frankly, we trusted the doctor and the doctors at Apollo full on. Because you have to trust the doctor,
True.
They will, whatever people say about doctors, that they might be keeping it as a business, it's too much of for them. But at the end of the day, I trusted my doctor, Dr. Vinod Suri, and the entire team. And when they suggested the thymectomy, we did go in for it. In fact, my surgery by the thoracic surgeon was by Dr. Baba Das, who was a fan of mine. He said, I will make sure that you're going back on air, I listen to you every evening. So like there, now you have to make sure. So we got this surgery done, except that I didn't realize how big that surgery was. I said, in anesthesia? He said, of course, general anesthesia. I said, done. When I want to know what pain is, it's okay. Once the anesthesia got over and I was in the ICU, I realized, damn, what just happened? It's like an open heart surgery. So
they opened because I think the thymus is just on the middle of your heart, on your lungs, right? So they had to open like the...
Yeah, so the sternum was cut and I was heavily bandaged. But all the symptoms had disappeared. All symptoms disappeared and I was like, yes, I am back. But of course, the voice did not have any strength. So they said it's because of the surgery, the trauma. So that'll take some time. So I waited and I waited 1 week, 2 weeks. I was out of the ICU into the general ward, but the voice was not getting any strength back. So they kept saying, no, wait. I said, how much more? And then I was getting impatient. I really wanted that voice quality and that strength back.
Yeah.
It was so bad that I had to keep an electronic bell with me, battery operated bell with me to call people when I had to speak. And when they would come, they would have to keep their face right next to my mouth, my face, to be able to hear what I'm saying. Eventually, the doctor suggested I go to the ENT. And the ENT said that, oh, good Lord, your left vocal cord is paralyzed.
Oh.
Like, wow. Double whammy. What did this mean? How did this happen? So he said, maybe during the surgery, you're taking out all this.
And is that irreversible? The vocal cord, once it gets paralyzed, it's irreversible?
Yeah, completely irreversible. So I said, what can be done? He said, nothing can be done. Gone. So I was a little upset. I said, how can the doctor just say, gone? He should give some solution. So he said, no, this is an irreversible process. So I was a little upset. I said, why can't you say that the second vocal cord is working? Why is he not telling me that? So he said, now you forget about going back on air. I said, no. I have to go back on bumper to bumper. I have to do my show. I have to talk to my son. I have to speak. I mean, how difficult is that still? And then he said no.
So you were determined that, even if my left vocal cord is gone, then I'm going to go back on here and I have still one vocal cord and I'm going back and I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah. So at that time, frankly, I was sure that I will make this irreversible process reversible.
Where does that belief come from? Doctor gave you the verdict saying that you are never going back to the ear and you can never speak. But still, you said, what, I have this right vocal cord, but I'm going to come back on ear. Where does that determination comes from?
I guess it influenced a lot of Hindi movies in my life.
The Miracle. survival of the dead person and all of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
lost and found and all those stories.
Yeah.
Or no, I guess it's mainly because it's actually difficult to say. I think I just did not give myself another choice.
Mm.
Now when I sit to analyze, I did not give myself the choice that what he said is going to happen. I have to say that it is my gaining strength in the second vocal cord. I would give it to Pavan. Pavan is my yoga guru, my younger to me, but is just one more angel in my life. And when I
Yeah.
told him that, this is what it is, in fact, he said, it's okay. You should be thankful that you have the second vocal cord. It's so lucky that that part of your body has gone where there is another one, which is the second vocal cord. So forget about the first one, which is paralyzed. We will work on this second one and make it strong enough to compensate for the first, the one which is paralyzed. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing
Relieving
to
thing.
do,
Yeah.
to say. And then he put in so much of efforts into my life, that he used to work in a school where he used to teach yoga and physical education. But before going to school, he would come home, and which was like cross country, literally. He would come on his bike early in the morning, 4:30. We would be in the park outside my house, and we would do yoga and pranayama. And pranayama yoga, I'm talking when I couldn't even breathe half a second on my own. From that
Mm.
he stretched and made me work slowly, steadily, and very, very slowly to decent degree. And more than that, getting that positivity into my being. That
Yeah.
it's we'll travel. We'll manage one day at a time, small steps, small baby steps. And it started to show, when actually that was one big learning. Then, and something which I tell everyone, that we always look at what's going to happen 5 years from now, next year,
Mm. Yeah.
and then when you're unable to achieve that in the next 1 week, you're disappointed, you're dejected, you're disheartened.
Yeah.
But that is
Mm.
now not how it should be. It has to be small steps, small
Yeah.
milestones, and
Yeah.
celebrating each victory,
Milestone. Yeah.
each milestone. So even if it is me taking, instead of 5 steps, 7 steps today of walking from the bedroom till the living room, I have to pat myself on the back and say, Dekha,
Well
yesterday
done.
it was
Yeah.
5, today it is 7, 2 steps extra. We don't do that. We want to do that marathon on day 2.
The first day. Yeah. Yeah. So one thing that kept coming to my mind when you were sharing all of this, when you were going through all of this, did you at some point felt that you were abusing your body with all the junk or all the things that we shouldn't actually be putting inside our body, whether that's emotionally, whether that's the food, whether that's the surrounding or the people? Did that thought occur to you, saying that, what, if I get back to normal, I promise that, I this is what I'm going to do with my life? And obviously the feeling of gratitude, was that something that was running on your head?
Not after the surgery, but after the radiation and the chemo. Because I think more than the surgery, the radiation and the chemo especially pulled me down big time. The immunity had gone
So
down.
okay, the chemo happened after this. So I think
Yeah.
after this, you got your voice back, and I think you
No,
went back to the radio, right? No.
no, no, no. So it was a
Okay.
surgery followed by radiation
Okay.
followed by chemotherapy, and after chemotherapy, and then yoga, pranayam, this, that, all the stuff,
Okay.
and then I went back on it.
Okay. In
Yeah.
fact, I mean, I was looking at your TED talk, and a lot of people create their resume. And you have your health resume, which says total surgery 6, total chemotherapies 24 cycles, total radiation therapy 48 sessions, total number of pneumonia attacks 4, total ICU admission 8 times, total number of ventilators 6. Like, I mean, that's insane.
Oh, good Lord, yes. Now you made me revisit my medical resume after a long time. Good Lord.
You said after your thymoma, surgery,
Hmm.
And it did not. I think the myasthenia occurred again. What happened?
No, so I got my surgery done, radiation and chemo. Then I looked after my
Okay.
body with Pavan, did my yoga, whatever. And then I went back on air to prove the doctor
Okay.
wrong. And I came back on
Okay.
radio.
You proved that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I proved the
Yeah.
doctor wrong.
With
I
a
went
single
back on
vocal cord. You went back to the radio with a single vocal cord working, right?
correct. And
Yeah.
I came back as the breakfast show jock on High Delhi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sadly, I couldn't sustain the show for long. So after a
Mm-hmm.
few months, I had to step down because the voice was not able to take the pressure, and it was not even airable quality. So that is
Yeah.
something when I would listen to my own voice, I'm like, oh, good Lord, what is happening? This can't go on air. And also because once
Yeah.
I come back home after the 4-hour show, I would be so tired and drained. I was unable to
Yeah.
speak to anyone else. Okay, so then the quality of life kind of decreased, and I couldn't speak to my kid. So, and of course, as I said, on air, it was not sounding good. It was uncomfortable for any listener to listen to that voice every single morning.
So when was it? Which year was it
This is
when you went
2007,
back?
2007, I think. I went back
Okay.
on
So the whole thing went on for 2 years from 2005 till 2007. You went back on year.
Yeah, yeah. So I was
Yeah.
also producing the breakfast show, and then I became
Mm.
the jockey and on air talent for a while. And then I was in complete remission.
Okay.
And what the time when to answer the question that you asked, that what were the things that I thought might have
Yeah.
contributed to it? Answer to that was all of the above. My eating
Yeah.
habits, my sleeping pattern, my workload, people around me, emotions, all of them put together. So that was a learning experience that I understood one by one. It was not a revelation that happened, it happened slowly and steadily. So while I was working those 9, 10, 11 years as a freelancer in a school, doing AIR, night shifts, day shifts, not saying no to any kind of work, any time of the day or the night, 7 days a week, just because I wanted to be, the best, as I said, perfectionist. So with the
Mm.
result, when you're stepping out and doing work in studios, you're not carrying food from home. And
Yeah.
those were not even the days when you had so many restaurants around. And neither did you have the money to go to the restaurant every day and, have
True.
a salad or a nutritious food or a lunch or whatever. So what do you have in a studio? You sit there and you order the bread pakoras and the, patties and all the junk food from the roadside. Having n number of cups of tea and coffee just for the heck of it. Just to give
Yeah.
company, give the other person company, sitting there for 3 hours having 5 cups of tea. And then
Yeah.
not sleeping at night because you have to do your night shifts at AIR. So virtually sleeping 2 hours in a day, 3 hours, maybe 10 hours over 3 days. So I was abusing the body like crazy. At that time, age was on my side. So I managed to do it, but it obviously had a cascading effect much later. Not
Yeah.
having good food, improper sleep, no exercise. I left dance. I would go to the gym once in a while, those 2 weeks and then disappear. So nothing was consistent. Nutritious food, home cooked food was completely missing. Breakfast, you're just gulping down something and stepping out. Then
Mm.
dinner again at a Z studio, ordering from, some local restaurant which gives food to bachelors. So there's nothing good or anything nice about that food. Forget about dry fruits and fruits and what I'm having now. Nothing of that. So I
Yeah.
abused body in my life completely. So that was a big learning.
Mm. Yeah. So, I mean, then after the chemo and all of that, did you promise yourself saying, God, please get me back to the, normal life? And I promise that I'm never going to abuse my body. Was that thought that was running on your head?
Absolutely. My kitchen changed, my eating habits changed, and my thinking changed.
Yeah.
Positive thoughts, getting negative people out of my system, and getting
Mm.
negative people out of our immediate surroundings. So it was a big
Mm.
exercise at Rahul, and I actually did,
Yeah.
consciously. People who say they are our friends and acquaintances, but
Mm.
somehow have a very they have a heavy aura around them that kind of pulls you down all the time. So,
Yeah.
just negate them from your life. And you're so
Yeah.
much better in, decluttering your friend circle once in a while is a good thing, the same as a spring cleaning in the house.
Yeah, yeah. So I think a lot of people, when we talk about, surround yourself with the really positive people, and a lot of people come back saying, you know what, I'm surrounded by, who are really close to us, but these are the people who are draining a lot of our positivity and energy away. So how does one do that? Is there anything that you'd like to share to the people on how they can distance themselves, or maybe shut themselves, or build that kind of a strong wall, so that even if they are nearby, the whatever they say or act, do not get into it? Is there something that you'd like to share with the people?
Well, frankly, it's easier said than done, but it's again a
Yeah.
very conscious effort. One needs to do it. That's it. So I know of some people who have been very good friends in other aspects. Yet I know that they have pulled me down, or I have let them rather, not they have pulled me down. I have let them pull me down emotionally, in so many ways, bringing down your self esteem, or just being jealous, or being nasty, extremely nasty,
Mm.
caustic.
Yeah.
So, so they basically are the bullies in your life, right?
Yeah.
They're trying, that's what they are. So, one way of dealing with them is to, actually, there's only one way, and that is to cut them off.
Yeah.
There, there,
Yeah.
there is no sweet way of doing it. So how do you do it? The same way as, let's say, that guy who was after you in school, and you did not want to talk to him. So what do? You stop taking the calls. You stop, interacting. You stop being where that person is. And that's exactly what applies here. So just stop all your interactions. That's the best way. Say you're busy. Say you're not
Yeah.
there available, or walk away. That's it. That's the only way. And it is
Yeah.
important. It's essential.
And Pallavi, for you, 2007 and the 2 years of going in and out the hospital was not the end. After that, you went back on radio. You did a bit stuff there. I think you also did marathon,
Yeah.
21K after that. And you went for trekking. And now your life was getting to the normal. You were eating healthy. You were, surrounding yourself with positive people. And then in 2015, the myasthenic crisis came back again.
Hmm.
And this is when you shared a lot of times before, saying that, on the first 2 years of all of that happening, I never asked myself, why me? Why this is happening to me? And, thought of yourself as a victim,
Hmm.
per se. But in 2015 is when you asked yourself, why me? Why this is happening to me? What was your reaction when you realized, then you have this type 2 lung cancer, and first myasthenic crisis, and then type 2 lung cancer that happening?
So, Vijay, you have left out from 2005, 6, 7 to 2015. Wait, there's much
Okay.
more inside. So,
Okay.
I was into remission. I ran the marathon,
Mhm.
the 7 kilometer marathon, one year, 21 kilometers. The next year, I was fit and fine. And then 2011, not a myasthenia crisis, but I had myasthenia gravis, thymoma repeating. So
Okay.
thymoma came back. Thymoma came back. So now thymoma is something that doesn't happen with every myasthenic. Thymoma. So myasthenia gravis is a rare autoimmune disorder. Out of that, a very few people have thymoma accompanied with myasthenia. So I was the chosen one. So 2011 is when it came back, and this time the cancerous cells was on my left lung, behind my left lung. So first the sternum was kept. Now this big surgery on my left lung, where the diaphragm also had to be cut, and now my diaphragm is forever a little what do you say, uplifted. I've got an
Mm.
uplifted diaphragm, so I'm unable to lie down on my own and stuff. So 2011 came back, and that is when I asked, why now? Because now I'm looking after myself, looking, feeling good, eating well, positive thoughts, as I said. So why did it come back? So that surgery happened, followed by radiation, followed by chemo. Then I went back into remission. And then 2015 is when I had hot spots in my right lung. So this time it was not followed by radiation and chemo, thankfully, but again a surgery where
Mhm.
my the right lung was compromised, and those hot spots were removed. By then, my body was totally gone. There was no
Yeah.
vitamin, no mineral, no nothing left inside. The chemo, the surgery, everything had taken its toll. And that is when the myasthenia crisis and type 2 lung failure.
So, did you ever, during this whole phase, given up on your hope? Because it's easier when you are, going through this back to back again and again and again, and it's easier for people to lose their hope. And as they say, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and for you, the tunnel seems never to be ending because it's going
Yeah.
again and again and again and again. Did you ever, give up on your hope, saying that I think this is it? I think I can't see the light anymore.
Well, I did not see the light anymore for a very long time on many, many incidents. I would be lying if I say that, I am the inspirational one, I am the
Mhm.
strongest. That's all bull. So that fear is always there. The fear is there even now when I'm feeling fine. That fear is there even now today on a single day, about 100 times it comes. It comes and goes, it comes and goes. But yeah, at that time, what works is, I think, the basic human instinct of survival. So there is no extra gyan in this. There are no big words here, but it is a basic instinct of survival. Now, what happens is that I think because of the kind of person that you are, that helps a lot. So if you're the stubborn kinds, you might be able to tide over it a little faster and easier. Not easier,
Mm.
but a little, more chances of you to travel the path better than those who might be a little weak in their will,
Yeah.
who might give up. But yeah, the basic instinct of survival is there. That is why we are ready to go to the hospital and we are ready to open those tablets and go into the operation theater again and again, because you know that you want to survive. You want to wake
Yeah.
up next morning. You want to wake up and have that morning tea
Yeah.
with your dogs around, with your kid around, with your pati around, with your husband around. So yeah, that greed, I call it the greed.
Great to be alive.
Greed to live the next day and not
Live
be
the life.
around
Yeah.
when the
Live the
rest of
next
them
day.
are partying.
Yeah.
Damn, how can I not be there?
Yeah. So now I got a question. You said, the people with a positive mindset and the will and who have a strong will saying that, you know what, this is temporary and I know that this has to end and I'm coming out of it. It might get I can hit as rock bottom as I can, but obviously the only way is up. I can't go, down this, right?
Hmm.
Now, I have to ask you this a little bit of a weird kind of question, but I think it's very important for people to understand the power of mindset. In your whole journey of going through these 48 sessions of radiation and chemotherapy and all of this, right? And all of this was happening to your life. If you have to give a number to your mindset in the entire recovery and bouncing back in your life, let's say, this percentage of probably the recovery was my mindset, and obviously everything, treatment and all of that was there. Uh, what number would you give?
80.
What percentage? 80.
The first time someone has asked me a question like that. So I've given you the number that comes first to my mind. 80%
Yeah.
is willpower.
And the mindset.
Yeah.
And what you are telling yourself. I think that's a really, really powerful message there, Pallavi. And for the listeners who are listening and probably going through either the medical challenges or any sort of challenges in their life, I think there's a huge, huge lesson there saying that if you have a strong determination and a very solid, robust mindset saying that, what the challenge that I'm going through is temporary and you are going to get back into your life, everything's going to get normal. So I think, that mindset is something what drives you out of the challenge. And from somebody who has not been through it once, twice, like again and again and again. And, she says 80% of it is mindset. I think that's a really, really powerful message out there for people listening to this. So, Pallavi, after going through all of this, when people are faced with even of the smallest problem, it's easier for them to, start complaining and start feel like a victim. And how your perspective about problems in life had changed after going through all of this. Now, how your approach to the problems, let's say before 2005 and after going through all of this after 2015, when you are faced with these problems, how your approach has changed.
Well, if you ask me, I'll have one answer. And if you ask the same question from my husband, he'll have another answer to this as to how I'm facing the issues in a life.
Yeah.
So, frankly speaking, one's character, the kind of person that you are, it's difficult to change that completely. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I still take a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. That is, I think, a part of my DNA, which I'm unable to still completely do away with. It's a constant effort. It's a
Hmm.
constant practice, and you to keep revisiting, issues and things, and keep reinventing yourself, and keep telling that this is not the way you're supposed to do it. You've done this way earlier and did not help. So
Hmm.
it is a difficult thing. Having said that, the one major change that has happened is that when I'm faced with a very extremely grave situation, be it at work, be it a decision making, generally family decision, life decision, work decision, whatever, or health, whatever. Not health, but yeah, the rest. Then I when my anxiety level kind of starts increasing and it starts to go out of control, out of bounds, is when I take a back seat. I stop and I review it from a distance, as if it's a
Hmm.
movie that is going on and I am just a observer. And I say, what is the worst that can happen? How bad can it be? You know,
Mm.
it can't be worse than what happened physically or medically. That is the ultimate.
True. Mm.
So, if
Yeah.
that deal did not come through, what is the worst that can happen? You know, you'll feel bad, you'll feel sad, will you work for the next one, right? What
Mm.
is the worst that will happen if you lose your job? What is the worst? You still are alive, you still get another job. You will get some work if you have the capacity, capability, etc. We just decide that that's going to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
That I have stopped thinking of, that is not the end of the world. There are options available. Are you open to looking at them? Are you open to receiving all the other options, all the other opportunities that are around you? So that anxiety level then has to be cut, nipped in the bud. So nothing in life that will take you down in the dumps, that is there in your control. Once you're and you need to do that, Vijay, because I've learned it the wrong way. When these emotions, when these issues keep building up, building up, building up deep inside you, you're not talking to anyone, you're not sharing, and you're not doing anything about it.
Mm.
Then after a while, the physical will say enough,
Yeah.
and it takes over all those things in the form of blood pressure, diabetes, liver issues, kidney issues, cancer, autoimmune disorders, you name it. So it comes to the physical only after we emotionally, mentally have not been able to resolve issues. Pent up emotions, pent up issues, accumulated, made a heap of, and put deep inside our system, which eventually, after years, will manifest in the physical. So
Mm.
this, nothing is the end of the world. क्या हो जाए? What will happen? What is the worst that can happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
If someone has
I think that's
shouted,
a good.
yeah,
True. True. I think that's a good way to look at the things that happens on a regular basis. And one of the I think that's how when you look at the problem, saying that what's the worst that can happen if I don't get this? Can I bounce back, or can I get another opportunity? That's a really good perspective, Pallavi. So if we have to summarize your life, when you try and say this is something a lot of people saying that when life throws you challenges and life wants you to learn some lessons. Yeah. So what are the three lessons that you have learned from the challenges that you were thrown in your life, if you have to summarize everything that you have learned after going through this into three key lessons about your life or your body or anything on your understanding about the life, what would those three lessons be?
Vijay, it is extremely difficult to take out three lessons because there are so many that I've learned
I'm
and
sure.
I continue learning. Um, but I think one of the biggest ones is gratitude. Gratitude for the people around you, your family, your friends, your relatives, the angels in your life who come and go for no reason. Why did they come into your lives at that particular moment? Even if it be for just one errand, for just one work, or for a face, why did they just come and then disappear? And your family, we take them for granted. We shouldn't. The kind of support that you get from your immediate family and your friends, you have to be so thankful for that always. That is one lesson, big lesson. Second, the second thing that comes to mind is something I don't know how to explain this. Though you say that you should be self-reliant and not depend on others and stuff, but one thing that I learned was that when going through a bad phase, again I say it applies across the board, and that is that it is okay to accept that you have an issue, you have a situation, and it is at that time okay to ask for help. It is a very difficult thing to do, extremely difficult, but you'll be surprised when you ask for help. There are people who are ready to, with unconditional love, warmth. They just stand there, right next to you. So it is okay to ask for help. I'm saying this because I remember when, I was going through the phases. Every time I would come back from the hospital, absolutely devastated physically and mentally.
True.
I had to depend on, Ranjana and Mariam, who have been my helps for years, and I would ask them to give me a bath. How difficult is that? How difficult is to even ask for, such a basic thing. You have to, let go of your awkwardness and whatever. But the kind of support that they gave, or help anywhere, in fact, you just have to ask. And the third lesson that I learned, I think towards the end, that is about 2 or 3 years ago. I had read about this in various books, self-help books. Um,
Hmm.
but so there's gratitude, there's living in the present, not thinking about the future, not thinking about the past. All those really, really work.
Hmm.
But the one lesson that I learned was to go with the flow, to
Hmm.
not uh, always try to fight, to not always try to uh, do the thing right, and put unnecessary stress on yourself. I remember that particular afternoon, evening, when I was going through a horrible phase, one of the worst phases of my life, when I did not know that my body was hyperventilating. So hyperventilation is basically that the carbon dioxide level in the body shoots up. Um,
Hmm.
so there's oxygen, but there's more carbon dioxide. It turns poisonous. And that was the reason why I was hallucinating. And I was hallucinating big time. I was unable to sleep through the night and I was falling. I would sit and sleep because I couldn't lie down because the diaphragm had come up. And I wasn't aware of that. And I was constantly falling off the bed. I would stand in the mornings, I would stand for a minute and I would doze off and I would fall flat, and I was hallucinating. I could see faces on a wall, clear cut faces, and it was scary. And I was talking to myself, and everyone at home was completely zapped. And that was the time when I actually one day sat looking at the wall in front of me, looking at the one God or the supreme power or the energy that I derived from. I just looked at that wall and I said, what the hell? When is this going to end? I am tired. I am genuinely tired and I'm through with all this. I did not lose hope again, but I was tired of fighting. What you say?
Mm.
That constant fight of I'll be fine, I have to be tomorrow hard. next day I have to be fine. So I was just simply tired. That tunnel, I couldn't see the end of it. And that was the day
Mm.
when I physically actually put my head and hands on the bed in front of me and I surrendered. I don't know to what, but I just surrendered. I said, I am now tired. I am now going to go with the flow. You decide where my life is going to go. Where am I going to go from here? The day I did that, Vijay, I'm telling you, I was far more clear in my head, much more calm, peace, and that anxiety level had come down because after a while, how much can you fight? How much can you do
Mm.
apart from doing everything that the doctor is saying, the nutritionist is saying, the psychologist is saying, your family, everything, but nothing was going right. Health was not getting better at all. My weakness just wouldn't go. I was tired
Mhm.
and I did not give up, but I surrendered and decided to go with the flow. And I'm telling you, I could feel the difference 1 week after that because I was fighting myself and my mind so much. I just gave up on that fight and I said, I'll go with the flow. So, yeah, at times you just have to.
Yeah, I think what you are also trying to, say is leave it to the universe, and believe the, whatever God or power, whatever you believe in, tell them that now, this is what I want and it's up to you. So I think it's just,
Yeah.
passing the ball to the universe's court. And as you said, now I think, when you said, when I did that, I felt lighter on my head. I think the reason that also happened was because now, I have given it to you and it's your duty to, get this right. And it's not, on my head anymore. I have like given it to you. I haven't given up the hope,
Mm.
but I have surrendered to you, saying that you decide. And I want to go with the flow.
Mm.
So I think that's a very, very beautiful lesson. So just to summarize quickly, be grateful of the people around you, and the second one, seek help. And not only in the situation like these, where obviously, when you need a lot, but even in the normal life as well, a lot of people find it difficult to ask for the help. And it takes a lot of people a lot of courage to ask for the help, even if it's the smallest one, where the people are usually more willing to help than what we normally think. And as you have already said, right, they do it with a lot of love and care, and it's just that we make it a lot on our head, saying that I don't know whether the person's going to help or not. And the third one is surrender. Just don't put or take a lot of weight on your own shoulders. Sometimes it's just to surrender and let go. Super, that those were really, really powerful lessons. So Pallavi, now it's time for the enlightening round. Are you ready for this?
So, will I get the Enlightenment Award
uh,
after this? Will I become
yes, you will.
Buddha? Will I
You
become Buddha?
will.
Shoot.
Yes. What inspires you to do everything that you do today?
The zest for life, my son, my husband, myself, nature, colors, flowers, anything that's beautiful and nice just keeps me going.
Which one daily habit do you believe has been game changer for you in this entire journey of yours? If you have to attribute everything that has happened to you to the one daily habit.
Meditation.
Great. Could you share a book or two that you have been influenced a lot, that has had a huge impact in your life?
I am not a very big book reader.
Reader, yeah?
I am so ashamed of myself. But yes, one book that kind of shook me up and made many of my fundamentals of life kind of clear was actually a Louis Hay book, Heal Your Mind, Heal Your Body. So that was a big, big revelation because it made so much of sense to me. So, yeah, Conversations with God, Power of Now. I started reading a
Yeah.
lot of such books when
Yeah.
I started to seek answers.
Hmm. True. If you were to start this journey all over again, let's say, you had this opportunity to start this all over again, what are those three things that you would have done differently?
clearly, I would not have worked as insanely as I did the first 10 years of my career and, messed up my body and mind and my entire system. So clearly, I would have taken it a little more planned and a little more disciplined life. So that is one. Second would be eating right. I messed up. I really messed up big time. I don't think I remember having even a fruit properly, on a daily basis. I really was, uh, I, I ill treated my body. And third, of course, is venomous relationships, people, thoughts. I would pick them up and throw them right there and not turn around and look at them again.
I have one last question that I would like to ask before I do that. I'm really, really excited, and we already have got some phenomenal responses for the podcast that we have put out. And you have done an amazing job of sharing your story and connecting with other people going through the same, and spreading the hope and the love, and the entire journey of the people struggling with the similar thing. But it's not as sad and gloom as you think, Pallavi. Bringing her all the Bollywood and all the drama and all the experience that she has with her podcast that I'm talking about can inspire is something. If you guys are looking at, even if you are dealing with some critical illness, or even if not, this is a podcast for you to get inspired. If you love the inspiring talk, I'm sure you are going to love Can Inspire as well. Pallavi, would you like to share more about how this Can Inspire came into your thought? How did you think about creating a podcast like this and reaching out to more people, and more stronger than ever with the single vocal cord that you are, and you are already rocking?
Yeah, the Can Inspire podcast was on my mind for quite a while, but never actually mustered up the courage to put them all together, all the thoughts together. The reason why I wanted to do the podcast was simply because I realized about 3-4 years ago that there has to be some reason why all this drama had to happen in my life. It can't be happening without any reason. There has to be some purpose. So when people keep talking about the purpose in your life, what is the purpose of your life, the philosophical question. So about 2-3 years ago is when I realized that maybe I'm meant to talk about my life experiences, so that others who are maybe undergoing a medical issue or any other issue might benefit, thinking that if I have managed to come out of it a few times, then as I said, I keep looking at myself from a distance. That is that really my story? But whoever it is, whatever the story is, it's a lot of drama and action into that, packed into it. So I wanted people to know, one, about myasthenia gravis. Till date, very few people know of an autoimmune disorder called myasthenia gravis, be it the doctors, be it the general public. There's hardly any awareness. So each of my talks that I give, I keep talking about what myasthenia gravis is, what happens, and what should be done. So I started with a Facebook group, did carry it on further. I left it like that. Then again, mustered up courage, and I said, let me not just restrict myself to myasthenia gravis and talk about all kinds of chronic illnesses. And Vijay, it's amazing, every time I speak to a guest, I realized our stories and our experiences, so many things are similar. So
True.
if the others actually listen to it, let
Yeah.
them not make the same mistakes that we did in our
True.
lives.
So true.
So
Yeah.
that was the reason, and so Can Inspire came about, and I got in touch with you.
Yeah. And
Yeah. So
yeah.
so Wine Start Studio is really helping me out. I just record and they take over the entire thing. So and the kind of response I'm getting is,
Oh yeah,
oh
phenomenal. And we get
yeah.
to see those messages, people coming out and sharing their own stories, and sharing their own stories of courage and strength, and recovery. And as you say, it's the world of hope, fear, and love. So I mean, it's been incredible. Guys, we have put out 3 episodes, and new episode drops every Wednesday. So It's now available on every single platform, and I'll put the link on the description of this episode as well. Can Inspire podcast. Go ahead and listen to it. And if you don't fall in love with Pallavi's voice, I mean, there is no way you can't fall in love with Pallavi's voice once you listen to that podcast. She's being very calm in this interview, but on that podcast, you will see, I think, not the full part, but at least better part of what she used to be. It is the RJ Pallo back in 2004-5 at Radio Mirchi. I have one last question that I would like to ask you.
Yeah.
Now that you have started, doing speaking a bit, and you go to a lot of events and share your story. Imagine this. This is the largest stadium that has ever been built in the history of the world, and there are millions people on that stadium. And you are on a stage, and you have been given only 1 minute of the time to share the most important lesson that you have learned in your life. What would be your message?
You got me thinking. I think the biggest message would be to make sure that you look after your body. When I say look after your body, it includes everything. It includes the physical, the mental, the emotional. This is where we live. It has to be looked after well. You've got to respect it. You've got to love it. You've got to take care of it. So it includes everything from exercise to positive thoughts to resolving issues in life. Any issue that you have with anyone or anything, resolve it. If you have a fear, confront it and get it out of your system. I strongly believe that all these things that we are not supposed to talk about, that we are not supposed to share, we kind of, accumulate it, keep it inside and let it grow, and we pile it up. I strongly, firmly believe that anything that happens in the physical happens after a very long time when the emotional is not able to handle. It then develops in the physical. So my thing to the audience of 10,000 would be just that, to love yourself, to look after the body that you are in, and look after it every which ways. The way you live your life for the first 20 years is how your body will look after you for the next 20 years.
Look after your body. It has been an amazing having this conversation with you, Pallavi. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vijay.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Inspiring Talk podcast. I hope Pallavi's story inspired you to take care of your body, be grateful for what you are blessed with in your life, and most importantly, never to give up on your hope. If this Iron Lady can go through all of this and bounce back stronger and better, I'm sure you too can. Wherever you are, keep at it, and this too shall pass. You can find all the links mentioned on this episode on show notes at theinspiringtalk.com/9191. And before you do anything else, let me know your biggest takeaway from this episode on my Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at @Vijay Speaks. You can check the podcast that we have produced with Pallavi called Can Inspire, wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you in the next. Now, go out there and do something inspiring.